have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Flight controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
Big John is going to be taking his place here in the studio with me, and we're going to get his parents on the phone and see if we can't find out what an eyewitness knows about this. Is this Miss Virginia?
Yes.
This is Earl Freudenberg here at WDOD, and your son, Big John, is here in the studio with me. And Big John, you want to say hi to your mama?
Okay, do I need to do anything here, Earl?
You don't need to do anything.
Okay. Hello, Mama, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm just deeply, deeply upset. But here's your father, dear.
Well, let me talk to you just for a minute.
All right.
Okay, I'm out of breath. I've been running back and forth here. We just had Paul Harvey on, and I've been trying to get this set up. This is John Anthony, and my parents live in Indian Harbor Beach, Florida, which is just, maybe 12, 15 miles maximum south of the launch pad. And one thing that I remember very vivid in my mind when I used to live down there is what a bird's-eye front row seat we had to watch all these launches, from the Saturn missiles right up to the space shuttle. Today, as routine, you walked out on your sun deck, and what did you see, Mom?
Well, we saw a beautiful sight. It was so beautiful, clear, cold, crispy day, but the shot was going so beautifully. And then all of a sudden, a big burst of fire and vapor trails and things and debris started falling in all directions. Then it seemed like two fire heads were going in separate directions, and all of a sudden there was nothing but just smoke. And you knew something was wrong because we were listening to NASA, and they were completely off of the air.
See,
nothing to say.
My father, Earl, is a ham operator also, and on the 2-meter VHF link, they were actually monitoring Capcom and all that kind of thing, Houston and the Space Center, all the different commands. They could even hear the astronauts speak back and forth, so they were listening to the whole thing and watching it. And when that bird takes off, it veers at an angle. If you ever watch it on television, it kind of swoops up and kind of hovers out toward the ocean. It actually comes right toward where my parents live, and they get a bird's-eye view. What was your initial feelings, Mom, when you saw that thing explode? How did you feel?
I just felt like the bottom of my stomach fell out because I knew something immediately wasn't right.
Gosh.
And I just been so upset that I'd rather you talk to your father now, John. I just don't feel good yet.
All right, let me talk to him.
Hi, son.
Hi, Dad. We're on the air right now on WDOD, okay. And we're on Earl Freudenberg's talk show.
I see.
And I wanted to ask, what were your feelings? Tell us what you saw.
Well, as you know, we generally watch every shot that we can because we live so close. We were up on our porch watching, and everything appeared to be very normal. It was there wasn't a cloud in the sky. And all of a sudden, there was a tremendous explosion. It's hard to explain. It was just a great big ball of fire.
What did you feel at that time when you saw the explosion?
Well, I knew that something really drastic had happened.
Let me preface all this, Dad, with my dad is a World War II veteran, flew 50 missions over Germany in a B-17, been shot down once or twice, and you know what explosions are, and you can put it all in the overall scheme of things in perspective. When you saw that explosion, was there any hope in your mind for any survival?
Not in the least. Everything just seemed to disappear in a white puff of smoke. And this is about a little more than a minute after the flight. And it appeared that, as you know, there are two boosters, one on each side of the shuttle. Then there's a huge fuel tank. and it appeared that the two boosters went their separate way and exploded separately. But I can't, I can't vouch for that because everything happens so darn fast.
Tony, this is Earl Freudenberg. Let me ask you, from the time that the rockets or the Challenger goes up, how far can you see that with the naked eye without any, using any magnifying material or anything? How long? 5 minutes, 6 minutes, or what?
Oh, I would guesstimate at least 5 minutes.
So you had a very clear picture of this explosion with the naked eye.
Right over the house, practically. Oh, yes.
Yeah, he told me
it always goes off east, and we live right close to the Atlantic Ocean, so we can peer right out.
Yeah, one thing I miss, Earl, going out in the backyard and pushing a button, lowering the boat into the canal, just about a mile from the ocean on the inland waterway there. And he made a comment to me on the phone a few minutes ago that, and you might confirm or deny this again, Dad, but you mentioned if you had binoculars, you could have probably seen the guy's face.
The paramedic that came down.
Right.
I didn't know who it was when the parachute came down. I said, "Oh my God, here comes somebody in a parachute." There was hope of some kind, but then we learned by on television that this was one of the paramedics that was deliberately dropped near the debris site, and that's only, by the way, the debris is supposed to have dropped about a few miles east of Cape Canaveral. I learned that there were icicles around the structure of the launch site this morning. It was below 32 or maybe even 28 degrees for 10 or 12 hours.
Well, two things.
A long time for a cool spell.
Yeah, two things come to mind. The ice could have caused something to malfunction, or then the extreme thought in my mind. You remember Colonel Gaddafi? You hear a lot about. I wonder if there was any kind of sabotage or something like that.
No, I don't think so, because that's a pretty well guarded place.
How cold is it this morning, Dad?
Well, when we got up, it was 23 degrees in our backyard. And up at Titusville, as you know, John, is probably a little colder than that. So it must have been close to the teens.
Tony, with the dozens of liftoffs that you have witnessed, did you ever think that something like this would happen?
Way back in my mind, I would say to myself, perhaps, "Oh my God, what would happen if something didn't go right? What would happen to those people? Would they have a chance?" But, it's just one of those things.
What, you say you were a pilot in World War II?
No, I was a radio operator on a B-17.
Well, from a layman's perspective, what do you think this will do to the United States' space program?
Well, there's been so many successes that I don't feel that the program will be scrapped. Look at all the benefits that would derive from it. And I think this will patch you. You recall some years ago when the four
that was the Apollo
burn up in the place up there. We got over that.
That was the Apollo mission, Earl. Remember those?
What effect do you think this will have on civilians wanting to go into space? I think Walter Cronkite has expressed an interest about going up in one of the space missions. Do you think that this will dampen the attitude of a civilian to fly in such a mission?
Well, let me put it to you this way. Every time there's an airplane crash, people that are going to fly wonder if they're going to die too. You see, so there's a lot of apprehension, but probably there will be. I don't think that people will be volunteering so readily. Don't you agree?
I see your point. I see your point, but I don't know. It seems to me that there would be some apprehension on the part of civilians since we have had this accident. You know, the space shuttle program, the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've had quite a few difficulties and delays, and even the last flight was problem-plagued, although it made its goal and was safely brought back to Earth.
Yeah, you asked me what my opinion would be on the future of these kinds of flights. I'm not an expert. I'm just a layman. But I would think that they would pay more attention to quality, maybe less flights. They're trying to do one a month now, and they're hurrying things. And look at all the delays that was made on the last flight that Senator Nelson went up in. And this one, too, had its problems. Yesterday, they had a problem with the door and had to delay it. And now with the freezing weather, one stops to think that maybe they might have waited. I don't know.
Then again,
there'll be more emphasis on quality.
Then again, Dad and Earl, you watch the Piranha Press at work. Every time there's a delay, they get on there and look disgusted and put a lot of pressure on NASA too. I wonder if the press ought to re-examine itself and be a little more patient, perhaps, in calling down NASA. Maybe NASA was under a lot of pressure to get this mission off, and perhaps wanted to delay this thing. Of course, I'm Sunday morning quarterbacking here, but perhaps it would have been better to have waited for the weather to warm up. Might have had a frozen valve or something that caused we'll find out, I'm sure. We're certainly not experts, but it's good of you to share that information with us. I know Mother, listening to her, I could feel the quiver in her voice, and she's pretty upset about that, isn't she?
Oh, yeah, and, well, so am I. When I put my hand on the sliding glass door, I could feel the quivering of the door like there was an earthquake. The sound waves were tremendous.
Oh yeah.
Generally, you've heard them, John. Generally, you hear a big bang about 5 or 10 minutes after the flight, but this one was tremendous.
Yeah, Earl and your listeners out there, they're close enough that whenever these launches go off, you can feel the ground rumble like an earthquake, and feel the shock waves, and it's a feeling that you cannot even hope to achieve by watching a TV set. It's something that only to be there that's it. You have to be there to feel it.
Tony, how many launches have you actually witnessed?
Oh, not just not counting the shuttles. I've watched. I've been here since 1969, and since we have such a nice view of things, they come right over the house. God, I don't know. There's been
hundreds,
more than certainly more than 20. I'll tell you that. In fact, we've even gone up to the Cape on our boat and watched them launch from our boat.
And you're less than 20 miles from the Cape.
That's right.
Something that you'll remember the rest of your life, I'm sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, I will, and I'm not giving up on the space program. I think we still got to hang in there.
There's too many wonderful things we've derived from the space program.
Exactly.
And there's more to learn, and we've got to press on, yeah.
For your information, John, I was listening to the countdown on 2 meters this morning, 146,610.
That's right. That's ham radio. What they do, Earl, and your audience out there, they pipe in the actual voice track from mission control to the spacecraft. He can hear the astronauts and mission control in Houston and at the Cape, and hear both sides of the conversation. It's piped over ham radio. And do you remember any of the last words, or were you paying attention to that?
They all they said was there's been a malfunction. A major malfunction.
It seemed like
he did use an adverb, major malfunction, and he went completely off the air. Evidently, they told him to pull a switch.
It seems like the explosion occurred shortly after Mission Control gave the go-ahead to throttle down. In other words, fire the booster rockets to place them in the proper entry in space there. And after they fired that throttle down, whatever the condition is, that's when the explosion occurred. Did you notice that too, Dad?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That was verified by Mission Control later also.
I haven't had a chance to watch it or anything, but that's what in hearing the audio track, it seemed like just shortly after that. Well, Dad, thank you, and thank you to Mom, and I'm sorry that we have to talk under these circumstances, but we thought we'd go right to someone who witnessed it and get a better feel for what exactly happened and some of the passion that went along with it.
Real tragic event, John.
Yes, indeed. Earl?
Thank you, Tony, and give our best to your wife, Virginia.
Will do. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And you say, John, that's Indian Harbor, Florida, less than 20 miles from the Cape.
Yeah, it's about 12 to 13 miles airline south of the launch pad that it took off on, and down there everything's flat. So, as a matter of fact, in Orlando, which is like 50 miles west of there, people get up on fourth floor of a building and can watch these launches from Orlando, and you can see them. And being that close, you feel it, see it, taste it, and he's right there. I've worked for the press and been at the press site on the Cape many times for the Saturn program. Remember the Soyuz, the joint mission with the Russians? I used to do play-by-plays of all these missions. I could tell you background, what the fuel consisted of, and it's quite a feeling to be there. And I was even closer than where they are, probably 1 mile from the launch pad, if I recall the actual distance. And there, it's incredible.
Now, this is the second. This is the second incident in space for the United States, right?
Yes, it is. It happened back in the Apollo program. That was even before the Saturn program. The Apollo, I believe it was Apollo 13. That sticks in my mind because I seem to correlate that with the unlucky number 13 in my mind. And I think it was either Apollo 12, 13, or 14, back in that range, where 3 or 4 of the astronauts burned up in a fire at the launch pad. It was a very tragic thing. Either the Mercury or Apollo program back in that time frame, back in the early 70s.
Did you see that, or did your parents see that?
Yes, I was there for that, and I'm telling you what, I'll never forget that. To think, when you're sitting there watching this rocket poised for liftoff, I mean, it's such an awesome sight, Earl. Like the Saturn rockets, just incredible. No one has an idea how big these things are until you get up there. If you ever get a chance to go to Florida, visit the Cape Kennedy Space Center and look at some of these rockets they have on display and stand next to them and look at the size. Like, they're larger than the buildings downtown Chattanooga. I mean, they dwarf these buildings. The VAB, as they call it, the Vehicle Assembly Building, that's the big building you see on the Cape. You can see that for miles, and there's a reason for it. It is the tallest building in the southeast. It is one of the world's largest buildings. It doesn't quite look that way. Of course, the Sears Tower is the largest up in Chicago, and then the World Trade Center in New York. But the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building, is one of the largest buildings in the world because it has to house the rocket. And these rockets are that big, many stories high, larger than the buildings of downtown Chattanooga. And to watch these things, to look at it sitting there poised on a launch pad and say, gee, there's human beings inside there. There's human beings in there, and they're going to blast off like a bullet. A rocket is what it is, and to think, how can that thing fly with just some fin tails on it? It's miraculous, the power, the thrust it would take to lift something that huge, that weighs millions of tons, and to see the tractor that brings the rocket from the VAB building to the launch pad, which is like a couple of miles away, just the plates on the wheels, like, you know what a tractor looks like, like a tank track or a tractor track. The planks on just one of the track planks is bigger than a car, and there's like thousands of these planks on these tracks, and that's how big this tremendous bulldozer is that has to carry this thing inch by inch to the launch pad. It puts it all in perspective to see how could man come up with something that powerful to lift that thing off the ground. That'll give you an idea. How much
does one of those rockets weigh?
Well, I can't remember all that, but it's just it's
hundreds of tons.
Hundreds and hundreds of tons, and the biggest thing that you can imagine. And to think that it would take that much thrust to lift that thing off the ground, you can imagine the explosion. That's why there's no hope. You saw that thing break into a million pieces, or those who watched it on TV, and there's just no hope. You know, that space shuttle's huge. Well, you think of a jumbo jet. They used to bring that space shuttle piggybacked on the back of a jumbo jet from California to the Space Center. They'd shuttle it back and forth. Remember seeing pictures of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that shuttle is, almost as big as the jumbo jet. And have you ever seen a jumbo jet,
Sure.
how big that is?
Mm-hmm.
And that little shuttle thing now looks tiny mounted on the rocket. Did you ever notice that? Like,
right.
It's piggybacked on the rocket, and it looks rather small compared to the rocket. And if you can put it all in perspective, like that jumbo jet would be attached to the side of the rocket, and it would look kind of small compared to the overall size of the rocket itself. And that whole thing exploded. Incredible.
I guess Chattanooga has a part in this, in that Red Bank Elementary School teacher Vivian Woods could have very well been on this flight. I believe she was one of the top 10, top 15 teachers.
Wow.
To be considered. And we called the school less than an hour ago, and we understand that she was in shock, as is the case with most Americans. But
like Waylon Jennings, he could have been on the plane with Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
He told me one time in confidence that a big lump in his throat, he thinks back about how he could have been on that plane with Big Bopper and all those other guys.
So we're going to try to get a hold of Miss Wood a little bit later on in the program. She was very much torn up and declined to talk with us on the phone there earlier, and that's understandable. But we'll try to reach her here in just a few minutes, and we're standing by. I believe in about a minute, ABC is going to give us an update. They're giving us special feeds every 15 minutes from the network regarding what has happened and giving us the very latest, so we'll get some of those. Big John, thanks a million for coming in and letting us talk with your parents on the air and getting a first-hand account from someone who actually saw, from a layman's perspective, of what happened.
Earl, my parents and myself are very patriotic, and I don't mean to sound like I'm a John Bircher or something like that, but, I was in Vietnam, my dad was in World War II, and we're very supportive of this country and feel everything, its successes and failures, and we take them in stride. And my mother called and wanted to know if we knew about it, and, of course, we've got the news and the bulletins here, but I could tell that she was crying, and I just thought that it would be something that we could get a better feel for.
Excellent. And we appreciate you letting us talk with your parents and letting them share with us